Right, hi there. What we're going to do today is we're going to do a little bit of graphs, but we're not going to use graphs as such, okay? It's going to be really hard for us in the current situation for us to be able to do lots of stuff with graphs, but there are certain aspects that we can do. Okay, so what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at if we are given a pair of coordinates, a couple of things that we can do with that is we can work out the midpoint of those coordinates, and we can work out the gradient of a line if I were to join those two coordinates up with the straight line. So first off, let's have a look at the midpoint. And just to give you some understanding of what the midpoint is, I will just quickly draw a sketch. It doesn't have to be accurate. We have our x values and our y values, okay? If I were to have, let's say, 2 points, one here, let's call this one A, and one here, let's call this one B. These would have coordinates, and the best way to talk about these now, I won't give them actual values, but we'll give A x1, y1, put them in brackets because they're coordinates, and we'll give B x2, y2. Okay, so that we won't give them values. Now, if I were to join up that line, the midpoint of these 2 points, these 2 coordinates, will be the bit directly in the middle. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward to find the midpoint. So to find the midpoint, find the averages of the x's and the y's. Okay, so when I mean averages, I mean the mean. Okay, there's only 2 of them, so I add them both together and I divide by how many there are. So what we get is the midpoint is equal to, the x coordinate will be x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and the y coordinate would be y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And that's a nice straightforward thing to remember. Some of you will probably just throw the numbers in anyway and work it out. So let's do a quick example. Find the midpoint of the coordinate 2, 3 and 8, 11. Pretty straightforward. So if this is x1, this is y1, so that's 2 and 3. If this is x2 and this is y2, that's 8 and 11. So what I need to do is I need to take the 2 x values, add them together and half it, take the 2 y values, add them together and half it. So the midpoint has the coordinates 2 plus 8 divided by 2, comma, and 3 plus 11 divided by 2. And then if we just tidy this up, 2 plus 8 is 10, divided by 2 is 5, 3 plus 11 is 14, divided by 2 is 7. And so they're the coordinates of the midpoint of these 2 coordinates. Okay, you could, if you wanted to, just sketch yourself a little graph and then draw it on yourself, but you'd have to get your scale on your axes as well. Okay, but we're not going to be working with the graphs. I'm going to do as much as I can just without the graphs where possible. Okay, so let's have a look at something else we can do when we get given 2 coordinates. Okay, the gradient. So let me draw a quick sketch. Sketch means it doesn't have to be completely accurate. So if I had a coordinate over here, A, and I had a coordinate over here, B, and I were to join it up with a straight line, don't forget that A I'm going to call x1, y1, because they'll have an x coordinate and a y coordinate. B I'm going to call x2 and y2. Let's make sure we label our graph properly when we do our sketch. So all the y values are the height and all the x values are the length, basically. or the distance horizontally. So the gradient is the rate at which the line increases in height for every one value of x. So whatever the gradient is, if x goes up by 1, y goes up by the gradient amount. So the best way to write that, let's have a look. The gradient is the rate at which the line increases in height for every 1 unit. So if we're working in meters, then it would be an increase of 1 meter, and then the height of the value for y would increase by the gradient amount. So the height increases in height for every 1 unit of x increase. So y will increase by the gradient, whatever the value is. Okay, so the gradient is the rate at which the line increases in height for every 1 unit of x increase. So every 1 unit that x increases, the y value will increase by the gradient. Okay, so there is a way of working out the gradient. So the gradient, and we use the coordinates that we get given. We take it's basically the difference in the y values divided by the difference in the x values, and you need to keep them around the same way. Okay, so we take y2 and we take y1, so it's the difference in the y values. You could swap them round, but you need to make sure you have the same numbers underneath in the same order. So it's y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Okay, if you wanted to swap the 1s and the 2s around, that's absolutely fine, but you need to do it both top and bottom. We also use a letter for the gradient, the rate at which it increases, and we use the letter m. Okay, so you might sometimes see that actually when they're talking about the gradient, they ask about the letter m. Right, let's do an example. Find the gradient, and this is called a line segment because it doesn't continue. You can find gradients of lines that are continuous, okay, but this line segment starts at A and finishes at B, so it's a segment. The way you would find the gradient of a line that's continuous is you would just pick 2 points on that line, and they're your 2 points, A and B. So find the gradient of the line segment joining -6, 8 and 1, -6. Okay, so to find the gradient, let's call this first point x1, y1, and this second point x2, y2. It doesn't matter which way round that you call these. So I might just need to drag this up a bit. Let me just take that off, give us a bit of space. So using the formula that we have, we need to take the y value, y2 and y1. So m equals y2 is -6, take away y1, which is 8, divided by x2, which is 1, take away, remember it's a take away, x1, which is a -6. So it's 1 minus -6. So that will turn into a plus. Okay, so the denominator will turn into a plus. So we've got -6 minus 8, which is -14. 1 plus 6 is 7. -14 divided by 7 is -2. So the gradient of the line joining these 2 points is -2. We haven't seen a minus before. A minus just means that for every time we increase in x, it goes down by 2. So what we'd actually have is a line going down from left to right. So a negative number means it's going to be going down from left to right. A positive number, whoop, drop my pen. A positive number means it's going to be going up from left to right. Okay, have a go at the questions that I've set you. This is pretty straightforward. Just remember the two formulas, okay? The gradient formula and the midpoint formula, and you should be absolutely fine. Right, have a great day, guys.